Well, good afternoon, everyone. I see that there's a lot of people busy. It must be April Fool on me because I'm here in the live session by myself. I totally understand because believe me, it's a Monday and it has been extremely busy for our office here as well. So hopefully you guys are muddling through your muddiest point on Monday and you have a good rest of the week if I don't hear from you, which hopefully I do. As we discussed, and I sent out some correspondence stating that we would have a live session hopefully every week. I'm trying to make these at your convenience, and I do know how difficult it can be to meet online in a synchronous session. The goal is to hopefully become synchronous in this course. However, like I said, with our schedules and everyone's differential time frames, we want to make sure that you have every opportunity to hear what we have to say in these live sessions. So this session is being recorded. If any of you happen to jump in, I'm so excited to have you with me. But without further ado, I'll just go through the information that I stated that I would give to you. And of course, if you have any questions, we always want to let you know, please email me, contact the Office of eLearning, or even stop by. I'm in the library in the office room 126. I'm actually, when you walk in the library, on the left or the right-hand side. And we are here with Rossford. They're not too loud, so trust me when I say you'll have some quiet time. But like I said, today we're going to talk a little bit about the training overview. I know most of you have already watched the introductory video, probably read thoroughly through the syllabus, and you're very familiar with the course material now. And now you're starting to just apply it. But just briefly, in the case that you might need it, I want to review. Reviewing is always important. This is a 4-week online course. Majority of it is asynchronous. We don't have any requirements for any synchronous sessions at this time. So let me repeat that. It is asynchronous, meaning we do not have any times where we all have to meet online at the same time. We do want you to know that we want you to engage and apply the content that we are providing to you in every week. Each week we'll cover a particular section of the e-learning rubric, and we start with section 1 and then progress in weeks 2, 3, 4 to sections 2 and so on and so forth. We want you to make sure that you're aware to participate in the weekly discussions with others, and I will tell you this week's discussion, I can't say it enough. I know I've already said it in the emails, but you guys are amazing. You have really pulled together, you've communicated with each other, you're working on creating a cohesive cohort, and believe me when I say there's a lot of evidence in our research that demonstrates a cohesive cohort, meaning a group of people who really work together online, whether it's through the discussion board, whether it's meeting online, through a web meeting like this, or even maybe you meet face-to-face. If you're all in this together, then you pull through together, you have more chance of better success. So hopefully if you haven't worked with anybody in this training session, hopefully you get to know somebody and you begin to work with them, because when we start working together, we share ideas, we generate new ideas, and we keep moving forward with this continual process of improvement. Speaking of continual improvement, majority of us are in here to try to become better teachers online, or some of us have never taught online before. Part of the requirement for this training is to create what we call a final project or a sample course. And this sample course is something that we already have given you a shell for. In the emails that I've sent you, your shell should have your last name, first initial, and then the month and the year. So for instance, the course might be 2019-10.OTE DOJ, and then it may be March 19, and that's the semester and the course and the month that we've started this. Please know that in this training shell, in the Online Teaching Elements training shell, though, there are a lot of helper contents here for you. Pick and choose what you want. If you need help applying them, reach out to me. I will help you in any way, shape, or form that I can. So, like I said, there's helper content. I've talked to some of you, and the first day that we had our training start, which was last Wednesday, I met with several of you. I was very excited to meet you, via the web meetings, face-to-face, and know that there's a sample template out there. I've actually loaded it in your training sample course shells. If you do not want this content, please let me know. It can be removed. It is modifiable by you. It is not a requirement. It's simply there to help provide and generate new ideas for you as you're creating your sample course, meaning the final project for this training. We do want to make sure that you're aware. Please, please, please don't use pre-canned, or what we may call in slang, canned content. No publisher content, no MindTap from Cengage, no Pearson Labs, no McGraw-Hill Higher Education, no Evolve. We're not going to use that. What we're looking to do in part of this training's goals is to help you learn to create, using the Blackboard tools, a from-scratch course. Some people might call it homegrown, but it's going to be your content, your creation, 100% your intellectual property. And this is something that stays with you. You get to keep this, period, no problems. So whether you want to design a course for the introduction of genealogy, if you want to create content, say for instance with marriage and the family, or human sex trafficking, you want to create a course specifically for that, whatever your subject matter expertise is, whatever drives you, whatever you're passionate about, hobby-wise, it's up to you what you want your sample course to be. But the sample template's there just to provide a scaffolding for you. It provides some of the information that the e-learning rubric does require, and in additional resources if you're struggling and you're not quite sure how you want to craft something but you know what you need, you can look in the additional resources folder in our online teaching elements course on Blackboard, and you'll see that folder in the course content. It does say additional resources. Now, I'm also going to tell you there are optional weekly challenges. Now, the optional weekly challenges, like I said, they're optional. These are things to push your skill level just a little bit more. For instance, adding a banner. If you've never added a banner or an image to your home page, then this teaches you how to do that. Or even perhaps adding a profile picture to your Blackboard. Now, I know majority of us say, what's that? What do we need that for? What it does is it actually not only personalizes it for you from your perspective, but your profile image also shows up in the discussion board. When people see an image of who you are, then it does humanize the course, and it increases instructor to student or participant to facilitator interaction. It creates a sense of a being, a sense of teamwork. Now, there's also the Q&A forum for help. Please make sure if you have any questions, you can share them there. We also have a how did you do that forum. So for instance, if you see something in the online training elements shell and you say, man, how did you do that? I just can't seem to figure it out. Shoot the question out there, put it in the forum. We'll answer it. Someone will. If I don't, I'm sure someone else can jump right in. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys are all aware of those particular parts, and make sure that you're aware of all the things that we do have here. So let's talk a little bit more about the e-learning rubric. Now, some of you may be a little intimidated when you see this. Others of you may not be intimidated. Don't worry. If you are, it's okay. You won't. It looks far more complicated than it really is. However, I just want to make sure that you are aware when you see this content. Let's see if I can blow this up here. Can I blow that up? Hopefully that's good for you. You'll see there's a header, and each header is a section. Section 1's the Getting Started section. This weekly training, these 4 weeks, are put together with sections in mind. So week 1 is more for the introduction, creating baselines for your course. This week we're really going to focus on just getting started. In your training shell, oh, there's Beatrice. In this training shell, we're going to be putting together the bare bones or the layout of your course. So this is where you might want to give your content some thought. You want to think about the layout. How do you want to lay this information out for your learners? How is it going to best benefit them? So every week we cover a section. We've got section 1, Getting Started, and each one of these items has 3 points, as I've already noted. But if you see the rubric item, it tells you pretty much what we're expecting to see in your sample shell. So when you're creating your content, we're actually looking for items such as a welcome announcement, your instructor self-introduction. And believe it or not, you've already put together that self-introduction when you created your welcome for the first discussion board. So I try to make sure that everything has always more than one purpose and more than one method. You can take your self-introduction and you can actually put it in your training shell as your welcome. It's a way for your students or your learners to get to know who you are. Hi, B. Hi, Donna. You guys, can you share your audio at all?
Trying to.
We're in the same room.
Oh, one of you turn your audio off then.
Only.
Just one person share their audio. You can hopefully speak into the same computer. But otherwise you get that nasty feedback you were hearing.
That's what we were trying to figure out. We
Yep.
got it now.
Yeah, you got it. Awesome. Awesome. I have started recording this session just so you guys are aware. I covered some of the very basics like the overview of the training. What I did not cover was the point values, and I'll get to that in a few minutes, but I wanted to make sure that everybody's on the same page when it comes to starting this week. Have both of you been able to look at the e-learning rubric?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions about what we're looking for? Because this first week is all about devoting not only to your knowledge and background of what e-learning has been and is, but also some of the elements of design for your course, as well as, you know, what are some of the best practices that you might want to put together for your course. That's what section 1 is all about. What are some of the things that we can put in your sample shell or your final project that can help your learners get a stable start to their learning environment? Any questions on any one of these rubric items that I have up here or that are in section 1?
Let me see. No, that should be fine.
What about you, Donna? You have any questions? You had a chance to take a peek at this yet?
I did, but I forgot most of it, so I'm going to reread it. I've read
Hey,
so
at
much
least you're
lately.
honest. No, that's fine. That's fine. The reason why it looks so wordy, I'm one of those people, if it isn't in writing, it didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I put the possible questions you can answer is if the rubric item doesn't seem to make sense, you can look at the possible questions you can answer column and say, what is the purpose of this particular rubric item? What is it going to do for my student or students? And what questions could it possibly answer for them? You know, for instance, the welcome announcement. What's this course? I'll for instance, as an undergrad, I took something called the British Empire, For or Against, and the course description was awful. It was a land-based course, and it turned out, instead of it being about upper crust British civilization, it turned out to be about the slave trade, which was awesome, but it wasn't what I was expecting. So a welcome announcement will help clarify that for your students so they know what they're getting into.
Okay.
And the self-introduction, I know both of you came in a little bit late. That self-introduction that you, the welcome that you gave in your first discussion board, that right there is basically your instructor's self-introduction.
Okay.
So as long as you maintained a nice balance of personal and professional experience and information, you can take that, copy it, and then paste it, minus the formatting, of course, and put it in your sample shell. That helps that rubric item get met.
I didn't know that.
Surprise. I'd say April Fool's, but I'm dead serious. It's not an April Fool.
Now, is that something we're required to do, or we can redo it and make it?
Oh, no, it's an example. Some people would rather not reinvent the wheel, but if you're not happy with it and you want to fine tune it to your expectations, by all means, go ahead, Donna.
No, just say that way it's not as personal.
Oh, well, if you feel it's too personal, you can take stuff out. That's, like I said, You're the instructor, and if you're not comfortable sharing that kind of information with your students, that's fine. But they do like to see just a little bit of person, because then, okay, here's this public facade and your professional facade, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you might be human. When we start to see interests and hobbies, it doesn't have to be family, of course, but something that you're comfortable sharing.
Okay.
The syllabus, I think that kind of goes without saying, but I will tell you one thing that I've seen in a couple of the trainings I've already had is that a lot of people put everything in the syllabus and they don't put it anywhere else in the course. And the only thing they do with the syllabus is they just post it as a file in Blackboard. But nobody can see it if they log into Blackboard. So you actually have to download it, then open it. And so you have to do a couple other steps to do it. The reason why I have this rubric item like this, where it says it's provided in the course, viewable without downloading, is because that provides ease of navigation for your students.
Yeah, I did see that in one of the things you had up there.
So for the students to be able to see your syllabus that you, when you're teaching, you make out your syllabus and then you save it. You save it as a file and then you have to download it and open it.
Well, what I'm saying from a student's perspective, if all you do is just upload it as a file, you know, for instance, let me see, I'm going to share my screen with you. If all you do is upload it into your course and they can't view it in Blackboard, then it could be a problem for them. So let me share this with you real quick.
So that's kind of like your template, correct? Like
correct, yeah. So,
yeah.
Right, so I have it where you can download it, so you can save a copy, but you can also see it in Blackboard. So for instance, if we're here, which this is not the correct one. Oh, I hate that. When I got two different screens, I don't know which way to click sometimes. It gets a little frustrating. But yes, in the rubrics, you see you have the syllabus right here, that you can view it. So if you're on your phone and you need to quickly check and make sure that I have met the deadlines, you can go through here and view the syllabus right away without having to download it, then open it in Microsoft Word or Adobe, and it takes 2 to 3 steps out of your procedure. So it's a time saver not only for you, but it's also for your students.
So you're just taking a portion of the syllabus and putting it on there?
You can.
Okay.
You can. In fact, that's what I've done with a couple of my courses. I've taken the syllabus itself and instead of giving it all in one huge chunk, I might take it and put it all together in one section here. But I also, such as in the sample course that I shared with you, I've not only put the syllabus in one gigantic area, I've also added other areas such as, you know, grading and expectations. And then I came back to my syllabus, grabbed that chunk out, and made it quickly accessible for someone to see. Okay. So that way they could go to it like that. They don't have to go through the 12 pages of the syllabus to find the one sentence that's buried in there. That can be frustrating for students, and I'm sure we've all heard but I didn't see it, so where was it? It just helps to make sure that we provide a more well-rounded course for our students. That way, a lot of our students seem to feel, or at least some of the students that I've come into contact with, that if it isn't in front of my face, I don't always see it. And sometimes that's human when we're overwhelmed with material.
Okay.
So just adding that syllabus, not only, and what you can do is literally once you create your syllabus B, you can copy the syllabus, you can build content, go to create an item, and I'll do it right here real quick. And in this text box, this text editor box, click in here and then press and hold down Control and tap V, and your whole syllabus will paste right here. And then all you have to do is attach your file.
And that way students will be able to just view it.
Yes. They'll not only be able to view it, but they'll also get that downloaded attached file. So if they want to save a copy for offline, they can see it then too.
Okay.
Is that any questions on that?
No.
Okay.
But I bet I'll have questions when I'm about to do that.
That's okay. I had, I think it was Connie, she emailed me last night, and I'm one of those people, if my phone dings, I'm on it. And she emailed me last night, and it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I sent her an email back right away because I don't want any of you, when you're taking this training, to feel like you're on your own. unless I'm out of the country or I don't have cell phone signal, chances are I'm going to answer my emails in less than 24 hours. Just because as a principle of practice for me as an instructor to my students, you know, that quick turnaround time helps make it easier on you, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay. And that's another thing, like I said, I'm trying to lead by example when we're putting this training together. I'm trying to deliver it the same way, by practice, leading by example. You'll find a lot of these items, believe it or not, when you put them together, if you're comprehensive enough, some of them will overlap. So for instance, the course navigation guidelines. You could put those navigation guidelines and instructions in your welcome announcement in a Start Here section. And in fact, Donna, I know you and I talked about putting the Start Here template information in your sample shell. I did go ahead and do that today. B, I know you said something about taking the whole sample, boy, can't talk, the whole sample template shell and posting it in your particular final project shell. I did that already now. So if you go into your own particular places where you're creating your course, you'll see that information. If you don't like it, let me know. I can go in and I can delete it. It's not a big deal. And it is also free for you to modify. Knock yourself out. I'm not going to say that that's my intellectual property. That's just what it's there for. It's there for you guys to use as a stepping stone to help generate new ideas. That's pretty much all it is. I want to make sure that you guys have a good platform to start from.
Okay.
Now, how is that one labeled? Is that the sample? I got so much on mine, it seems like.
Oh, I'm sure. I have given a lot of information at this time, and I definitely know it can be overload. So let me go back here one more step. For instance, if I go to this sample course template, this is what you all have access to. But this whole shell, like for B, I have copied this to your final course project shell. So this all these links are put in your sample shell for you to use and modify as you wish. And then Donna, you and I talked about just adding the Start Here, the information that was listed in the sample course template for your shell. And I see you've been in there. You've been busy. You've been really busy.
I'm trying.
Sometimes that's all we can do. But for instance, this information is there. You're welcome to modify it. You're welcome to delete it. You're welcome to change the wording. This is entirely your project, your creativity. Let the creative mind flow.
And with this being a template, this would be the one that we would finish and be considered our assignment.
Well, the sample course template, that's just something for you to see and to use. But for example, do you mind, Donna, if I share your shell really quick?
You're fine.
Okay, so for instance, you're going to go to your 2019-10 OTE done D, and then March 19. That's the shell where you create your final project. And as you can see, you know, Donna's been in here and she's been super busy, which is awesome. But she's made particular course menu items. But for instance, you mentioned the Start Here, that you were interested in that information, so I copied it over. This is where you make your changes.
Oh, okay.
So if you don't like this, you can delete it. If you want to modify it, you can modify it. If you want to take it apart and revamp it.
No, that's fine. I have under the classes on the homepage of Blackboard, I have that and sample EOD course 2 and all this other craziness. So I wasn't sure exactly where you put it, but I get it now. I see now that you showed me.
Okay, and speaking of that, I'm glad you said something, Donna. That sample EOD course, I believe you should see 2 of them. I gave you 2 samples of something that I've done in the past.
Okay.
So for instance, sample EOD course 2, I believe you may see. Mm-hmm. This was a course, it was a live course I used last semester. So it was for an introduction to gerontology. As you can tell, what is, oh, my watch is talking to me. Excuse me for a second. I'm sorry if that picked up on my mic, but hopefully it didn't. But as you can see, you know, we've got Homer Simpson. He looks like he's an aging student. He's poring over a book. The picture in itself is illustrative of the content. But then you see over here that it's been modified, and you can explore each one of these. You're welcome to use it as your own template. You know, you can see there's an office hours meeting link. It'll take them to Collaborate itself. I put that in the course. So there's a lot of stuff that I've customized specifically for my audience for gerontology. Now your course might be different depending on your subject matter. But this is just an example. So you can use this to help create new ideas or brainstorm, or you can ignore it completely. It's your prerogative.
Now, when using pictures or websites or stuff like that, do we have to have like a credit toward it, or?
What I would recommend and best practices are to cite wherever you get your stuff from. So if it's an image and you can cite it, do it. And the reason I say that is because even, for instance, in week 1, like I said, this isn't a lead by example course training. Okay, come on. I have to log in here. And if you see this week 1, that link underneath, that's a course map for the week. It's kind of a checklist to allow you to get familiar or to get the information that you want out of the course. But underneath here, you see I've cited there's source education online. Same here, citation. I'm just highlighting it. Unfortunately, it's not as big as I'd like it to be.
Well, that I understand, but like I tried to put like a banner. And I couldn't figure it out, and I didn't know how that would have to, if that had to have any citations, because it's, you know, up on the top. There's no really.
Oh no, I gotcha. Blackboard unfortunately doesn't allow us to cite our banner. So unless you want to create a banner using PowerPoint and put the citation in there and create it as an image and then upload it, I'm not going to ding anybody for that. That's a Blackboard failing in my opinion. No, I wouldn't do that.
Okay. Because I was going to take one off images or Google Images, but I was like, I don't know if I have to find it. I couldn't find it.
No, you feel free to take an image off of Google. You know, I've had some people use GIFs. You can use those GIFs, those quick animated pictures. And I've actually tested a few of them. As long as it is a GIF, it'll work. But if it's like a movie file, it won't upload. So it has to be .gif as a file if you want to use a quick image. I've had people put together a bunch of images and create their own GIF. So that way they could, you know, illustrate maybe a concept that they were talking about. For instance, you know, in sociology or a social problem might be gun control. So they've taken a whole bunch of images and compiled them and created a slideshow that they show in their course on Blackboard right up here for that week. And then every week they change it.
So how would I get a banner up on there? Because every time I did it, it would put it like a banner above the announcements.
Right.
And the page.
Okay, how you do that, and I believe the same way that you were doing it, is you go to customization, which is underneath course management in the lower left, click on teaching style, and you're only going to see it under the entry page where your course starts. By default, we have it set up for announcements. So course structure, I would not worry about that, leave that alone, otherwise that'll start creating new things in your course menu that you may not want. But the course entry point is going to be the point where your banner will be visible, and that's the only page you'll see it on.
Yeah, that's the problem I was having. Okay.
Yep, so if you want to change that, you can change it to any other content area you wish. It can be any other page, but that's going to be the page where your course opens to.
Okay.
So I have some people, they've made it to go to the start here. So as soon as the course opens, when they click on their course in Blackboard, boom, it opens right up to start here. But then they miss out on the announcements, which an instructor might be using. So now every time they're directed to start here, 3 weeks into the course, if they don't change it, they're still going to start here, and they may miss out on the announcements. So if you do change it, just make sure, you know, some point during the semester you flip it to announcements, so that's the first thing the students see.
Okay.
Here, the menu style is also something, B, I don't know if you're familiar with this. Is she still there?
Yeah.
Okay, just checking. I saw you left the session, so to speak. You can change the colors. One of the ADA principles that I'm going to be looking at with this e-learning rubric as we get towards section 6 is going to be color contrast. Are you using color just for the sake of using color, or are you using color with a purpose? ADA principles, you're going to want to use color with a purpose. If you're just changing colors just because it looks pretty, it may not be accessible. And to illustrate that point, imagine having a fuchsia background with a light pink text. Are you going to be able to read that? Probably not. So for instance, say I'll go with like ugly lime green, spring green. There you go. So you can't really read that very well, can you?
No.
Yeah, well, I highly recommend to go with high color contrast. If you're going with a dark background, go with a very light color text. Or if you're going with a light text or light background, go with a dark colored text. And the reason why is because that will just help your users who may not have good vision. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And by default, we have it already set up. But if you want to change the colors, just that rule of thumb, remember, make sure that the colors are really high in contrast.
Also, on mine, I had on the course shell, the letters, like mine kept, everyone that I added ended up staying in bold, and the rest of them are not in bold. So how do I make them so they're the same?
Do you mind if I look back at your shell again? Okay. All right, because what you're describing sounds fishy to me. It sounds like it could have been something in Blackboard that's, oh, right here. I see what happened. Donna, when you're creating this, what's in bold, these are not content areas. You see, and I don't know if you can see, but you see how my mouse right here is still just a mouse? It's just the arrow, which means this is not a link. This is, yeah, this is not a link. And I think what happened was you made it a subheader. Those are bold. So if you want it to be a clickable area, it has to be a content module or any one of these links. A subheader will be, you know, adding text in there. We'll make it the bold. That's what I thought, but it wasn't 100%. I wanted to make sure Blackboard wasn't being quirky. So those things you'll have to create as content areas or links, whichever you prefer.
Okay.
And make sure that, and then the bold will go away after that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, other things. Come on, Blackboard, there we go. Other things, let's see here. Other questions, concerns. You guys have done an awesome job with your discussion forums. That was, you guys were on point with that. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Seems like the weekend was the time to get things done, huh?
Time I was busiest.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, well, I hear you, because that's what I was doing. I was trying to get things done, and then all of a sudden it snowed, and I said, well, I guess I'm not going outside anymore. But let's move forward a little bit more. The one thing I really want to emphasize for you, and this is actually preloaded. If you had the sample template information, you should already have this one right here. The course navigation guidelines and instructions provided to learners. There's already an item that was in the Start Here section of the template that I loaded to your courses. So where your final shell is, that's what?
I'm not even on it.
Yeah, something just jumped. Why did oh, I don't know. These course navigation guidelines, they're already there. You'll see it when you go into your shell. It's about halfway through the items, and they'll tell you, how do I get around in this course? Modify that, so if you change the way your course is structured, make sure that you let your students know what they need to do. But as it stands, this is already in place.
Okay.
Okay. In addition, I don't know if you're planning on using additional hardware, or not additional hardware, but additional software or resources in particular. Say, for instance, Donna, I know you mentioned something about being heavy into genealogy in your discussion forum. If you're going to have them use a genealogy search engine, you are going to want to make sure that instructions are provided for that genealogy search engine and how to use it. And when I say conspicuous, I'm talking about it's right there, boom, in front of them. They know, there's no doubt what they're supposed to do with this course. There's no doubt what they're supposed to do with this software.
Okay.
The reason why is because there's always one in every crowd that's going to ask you the question of, what did I need to do? But for the majority, 99.9% of them, by following this rubric item, you've answered that question already.
Okay.
Now, which one of you was it that said you recently just went through online courses? Was that you, Donna?
No, that was probably me.
Okay, no, you're right, it was B. It was B, get it done. All right. Did you ever have a course where you had publisher content, for instance, where you had to have an access code to get into the material?
Yeah.
Okay, there's another reason. When I have that in there, as the possible questions that you could answer, how do I get a publisher access code? Those are the kinds of instructions you might want to put in there. So if, for instance, you were going to think about using, publisher content in the future in your sample shell, you'd put that information someplace in the Start Here or someplace in your syllabus or both to let people know, hey, you need this, you got to go get it. Don't expect them to know because they probably won't.
Okay.
This is another ADA thing. It's in alignment with ADA, the second to last rubric item, the consistent, appropriate visual scheme. Make sure, like I said, that if you're going to use buttons, make sure they're in high contrast. Although I will tell you, Donna, ADA is steering away from the use of buttons in Blackboard. They're pretty, and they do segregate the content areas, but they're not necessarily accessible when it comes to different screen sizes.
Okay.
Do you want me to show you what I mean?
Yeah, just an example.
Okay, so let me quickly show you what I mean by I'm going to grab your course again. And I did this when we first went over to our, what we call the screen responsive Blackboard that we have now. It's, like I said, I loved them. I used to do all kinds of stuff. I liked all kinds of designs in there. However, after knowing what I know now, I found that it isn't a good idea. So, okay, for instance, here's the course. Now I'm going to take this course and I'm going to put it on a mobile, well, I'm going to hide it from you first of all. So here's buttons. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand my screen slightly. See how the design changes? This up here becomes a button where I could expand my course menu. Mm-hmm. But now watch what happens as I close it. If I shrink my screen at a particular size, look what happens to your buttons.
Okay.
The text doesn't necessarily become right behind. You see how the text is offline of the button?
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, Blackboard's not up to speed with these buttons. So to make sure that your course is ADA compliant, meaning that it's universal for all your learners to be able to get to the things, a screen reader is going to have issues with these buttons.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've had students with visual accommodation issues, but if they're reading their screen, these things are going to throw it off.
Okay.
So, and no, trust me, I love the colors. Those are my favorite colors. Actually, blue is my favorite color. Let's see here. Any other questions I can answer for both of you?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No, we'll just blow up your phone with emails.
That's fine. Blow it up. That's fine. Last night it was, it's funny. I have my ringtones customized. And I don't know how old both of you are, but I liked Gremlins as a kid. Mm-hmm. So I have the Gremlin laughter for my Outlook application on my phone. So every time someone dings me from Outlook, I hear the Gremlins, and it's funny because it makes my husband jump every time. So I love doing it. It's my way of. Yeah. What's life if you can't have a little fun with your spouse, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, you guys have already pretty much known about number one. When you're in an online class, it's really hard to see people. It's hard to talk to people. So we've used the discussion board for a lot of times, a lot of decades now, as a means to try to create student-to-student interaction. So by asking the learners to introduce themselves as part of the class requirements, it helps to create a group. And sometimes, especially, I don't know what kind of courses you guys had online, but sometimes you might have to do group work in an online course.
Mm-hmm.
So it can be pretty tough for people, and we want to make sure that everybody's at least familiar with the other person. So, introducing yourself, sharing a little bit of information. You don't have to go into great detail. If you're not comfortable with sharing certain things, you don't have to, but at least requiring them to get to know another person and say, hey, hi, how are you? A meet and greet, so to speak. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's pretty much it for the first section. That's kind of what we're concentrating on for this first week. The next week, which will be week 2, we'll really be honing in on creating goals for the course, which is in section 2. And that's going to be focusing more on your course content. So I want to prepare you guys for this. Are you both familiar with objectives, student learning outcomes, objectives versus outcomes?
Yeah.
Yes? Yes? No?
Yes. Yes for me.
Okay. The difference between the two is what?
The objectives is what you want the students to get out of the course.
Mm-hmm.
What else is?
The learning objective, so to speak, versus an outcome. What's the difference between an objective and an outcome?
Wouldn't it be like what you expect and what for the objectives, and then what they get out of it be the outcome?
Correct. And you're both on it. When it comes to an objective, it's what's the expectation that you're going to expect them to learn. The outcome is the actual measurement of the objective.
Right.
So, and a lot of people, I was surprised at how many people were not familiar with that. So I'm glad you guys both are. One common issue we have with online courses is that we have these objectives or these outcomes, and we don't have a method of measuring those outcomes or objectives. So when I say the term use measurable action words, like as in this first rubric item, we're talking about Bloom's taxonomy. We're talking about how, and these measurable action words should drive what your assignments will be. So for instance, if I give a course objective that says student will compare and contrast the 1800s to the 1900s, I could use an essay for that because that's a comparison and contrast, but a multiple choice examination may not be the best or suitable assessment for that objective and that outcome.
Okay.
So we're talking about what QM, or Quality Matters, calls the concept of alignment, that the objectives are there, which drive the assessments, and the assessments support the outcomes. So basically, by the end of the day, if this course is saying this is what we intend to do for our students, we want them to be able to do this when they get out of the course.
Okay.
So as you're structuring your content, remember what kind of objectives you want. What do you intend on providing to the students? What do you intend for the students to know or to learn? And the reason I say that is because we want to make sure that they're suitable to your learners. And I know this is just a sample, but in the future, for courses that you're teaching here at Owens or someplace else, we look at those objectives as, okay, well, what can I expect to get out of this course, or what can I expect from this course? Those objectives help out a lot. What can I expect to get out, or what can I do when I'm done? Those are the outcomes, and the assessments help us measure these. So once you get this down, the majority of these will fall into line. So they'll get easier once you create your objectives and your outcomes.
Okay.
But that can be tough, and I don't know if either of you have come up with your thoughts on what you're going to do for your sample course. V, have you given some thought onto what you want to create for your sample course?
We were kind of wondering if to do it on language and medicine, like, because we're both teaching that in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
and we were wondering if just maybe getting different versions of our own versions of for that to kind of prep us for later, since we haven't taught it before.
That's a great idea, and I'll be honest with you, this sample shell that you're creating right now, it's yours to keep, period, when you're done. This is yours. So the sample shell is yours to take. It's your intellectual property. It's something you've created, and if it meets the rubrics, items, and it goes through, you know, you can explain to your chair, say, look, this is what I've created. And chances are, you know, some of that content it might be used. It's depending on what the accreditation is. And I think that's Sue Deutschman, which is HIT, the Health Information Technologies. Yeah, that's Sue.
Yeah.
So, and she's very big on quality matters. So she's familiar with these kinds of concepts. And this is going to really be helpful for you guys too. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to create HIT content, or like I said last Wednesday, have fun with it. If it's something that's going to motivate you, chances are you'll be more likely to participate in it. So if you want to make it as a hobby, just to get down the fundamentals, go right ahead. So if you're interested in doing a course on genealogy, or interested on, you know, I think, what did we say, B, something about a orientation to Toledo Hospital, you're welcome to do that too. It doesn't have to be professional. That can come after the fact. And I can always meet with you after the training is done too, and we can work together to set this up with a HIT course. But I know you're both time constrained, so whatever works well for you, whatever's most efficient for you, I'll let you guys decide, but I'm just making sure you know that there's plenty of options for it, both of you.
Okay.
So please don't feel overwhelmed, and if you're doing something professional that's really hard on you, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by any means.
Okay. All right.
Are any other questions I can answer for you at this time?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, what about one question I do have for both of you? Deadlines. The discussion forum deadlines, do you have any questions about them? Were you confused by them?
No.
No, you said that the discussion boards are due Sunday, and then the responses are due Tuesday or Wednesday? Wednesday.
Yep. So rule of thumb, get them done Saturday, get them done Tuesday. That way you don't have to worry about that 7:59 in the morning deadline. But it's like that because, you know, if you've taken online courses, you know not all deadlines are the same. Is to shake up the idea that, you know, every course might be different.
Well, then it doesn't pile up either. Like everybody's due on the same day. That way it kind of spreads it out.
Yep, I call them staggered deadlines. Some people like them, some people do not. I'm totally fine with it either way, but for the purposes of this training, it's to introduce people to something that they may not have ever experienced before. And that's one of the goals, is to help broaden the horizons of what they think of online learning, help create some new ideas, and keep spreading the thought process of continued improvement for online courses.
All right.
Ooh. So. At this time, I'm going to conclude, so I'm going to stop recording, and hopefully